Okay, good rebuttal. It's a nice little rebuttal. I see you, Scottie. Nice rebuttal. That's what I want to see. We need that. He looked motivated. He looked motivated and he looked confident with Quickley back. Shout out to Quick for coming back, and whether he's healthy enough, whatever he could give us, we'll take it. We'll pause. You know what I mean? I know how some of y'all think, but yeah, it's good. It's good to see him confident. He came into that one confident, like he wanted to prove a point, and it's good that he was able to. Because a lot of times you might want to prove a point, it don't necessarily always work out like that. You know what I mean? He looked very motivated, very confident. You know what I mean, with Quickley back, and he looked determined to do something, to produce something against the 12-21 Brooklyn Nets. He looked like he was on one, like he was ready for it. And I commend him. You know what I mean? Those 33 and 13 and 5 ain't easy to come by, even if you're playing against a team like the Brooklyn Nets. I would prefer he get those numbers against Atlanta, against, Boston, against teams that we deem worthy of that type of work. Brooklyn is like, you take it with a grain of salt. Like, you kind of supposed to body Brooklyn. We expect you to body Brooklyn. We expect you to do that to the Nets. We expect that. But we appreciate it nonetheless. We're not going to overlook it like it's easy to do. It's not easy to get 33 and 13 in the NBA coming off of a mediocre game. You know what I mean? Where we lost by 54, 55 points. And people are trying to sweep it under the rug like, OKC lost by 73 in 2021. That's the pandemic. And why would you compare yourself to that? We hold ourselves at a different standard. That's not supposed to happen. Regardless of you can't explain that away. It was an unnecessary type of loss. Unnecessary. I can understand 25, maybe 30. Respectable, we got it. But that was different. And why would we want to compare to somebody else who had a miserable moment and then be like, well, we could build. Well, we're not the same team as them. We're not getting the same type of love either. You see the type of love that Shea gets? You can't touch Shea. Shea gets you 30 a night. You can't touch him. You can't stop him. You can't do nothing with him. Our players, 7-on-6, 8-on-5. You know what I mean? It's rarely that type of affair where we're getting that type of love from the machine and the referees. A lot of it is an uphill battle for our superstars. We understand that. It's frustrating, but we understand that. And to compare ourselves to OKC is like apples and oranges. But shout out to OKC. Shea is a beast. They got a good team. I like that team. But shout out to Scottie. You know what I mean? But he has to understand his presence has to be felt every game. He can't, like I said yesterday, he can't afford to have a night off, despite the excuses some people want to make. He can't afford that because that puts us behind the 8 ball more than we already are. It makes things a lot tougher. Until we solidify what the system is, what people's roles are, what their responsibilities are, and guys are executing at the level necessary for us to win if he's having a bad game, then him having a bad game wouldn't be a big deal. It would be understandable because it's an ebb and flow of the season. But nah, he should be looking forward to these opportunities to shine and show everything they gave me I deserve. And if you don't want me to have it, you're going to have to take it from me. And y'all ain't built like that. I'm 6'10", 250. It's gonna be an uphill battle for you as well to take it from me. His presence has to be felt. Regardless of how the NBA is and they're catering the lighter players, more perimeter players, the more entertaining, quicker players, his power and his strength still has to be used. His game should be inside out, not outside in. We've established that years ago when we talked about the same shit every year with him. We would rather him start inside out instead of outside in. That's it. It's not that hard. His presence should be felt immediately from below the free throw line, below the 3-point line. Everything happens faster, quicker. They won't need a dribble. If he makes a pass from the left or the right block over his shoulder or whatever, who's cutting to the basket, it's an easy situation and making the pass, and they got to figure out what they could do off the dribble to score. Same thing for him. The closer he is to the basket, it's easier for him to score. It's easier for him to grab the rebound and start that offense. It's a lot easier for him to do everything if he's closer to the basket. Him being further away from the basket it makes him a liability for us. The further and further away he is, the more of a liability he'll become. The closer he gets, the bigger of an asset he is. Simple. There's no algorithm for that. It's just fucking common sense. But he made his presence felt last night. And he exuded that's what an all-star rookie of the year caliber player looks like. He did it against the Brooklyn Nets. I would love to see him do that against a top 6 team. I don't want him to be one of those guys who shows up against sub 500 teams, but when we need a win and when we're going up against a real relevant opponent, he's a shell of himself, or he questions himself, or, you know what I mean, he gets in his own head, or just the system that he utilized against the weaker opponents, he's not able to get off and utilize against, the better opponents. He has to have something more systematic that works against better opponents than what we've been seeing. You know what I mean? Because you can't play the same game you play against Brooklyn, against the Celtics, against the Knicks, against Cleveland, against Orlando. You got to have something to offer the game against these various different opponents. That's why watching film is important. You watch the film to figure, I can use this, I can do that, I can do that. He has the skills to do whatever he wants anytime on the court. It's the hardest part for him, and I said this beginning of the season, is to figure out what parts of his game he actually needs for us to win. Because he doesn't have to do any of the stuff that he's doing. He can just pick the stuff that he knows is going to work, do that, save the energy, get ready for the next game. It's not like they can stop him. If he's below the free throw line, you just hoping he miss. The jump hook is that's easy money. That fadeaway, he can get that off too. Utilizing the glass, there's so much he can do below the free throw line or inside the 3-point line. So many more options. A bigger impact. He can have these numbers often. If we're trying to figure out how to win with a young team, he has to let it be known that no matter what the situation is, they got to deal with him. They got to see him. It ain't going to be no cakewalk. It's going to be problems. That's what made Michael Jordan different. No matter what team he had around him, he was going to be a headache for you. It was going to be a problem. I don't care what you got. You're going to get this work. And that's just what it is. I want them to have that respect for him when he gets on the court. We got a long night ahead of us. This kid is a problem. He has to give off that. And he has to produce at that level like that. It can't be he played well today. Well, let's see what he does tomorrow. Let's see how long he can keep this going. Is this his new normal, or is this just a wave? And people can step back and let the wave hit the tide and then get back to normal. They can ride a wave. You know what I mean? So it's like, we want him to have the impact that his awards, that his presence and physicality and abilities dictates. He should be a threat. All by himself, he should be a one-man army. That's a fact. That's what we want. More than the numbers, we want teams to be afraid of him. We want teams to be aware of him 100%. This guy's a problem. I don't feel that way. I don't think the NBA, these teams don't fear him like that. They don't. If he gets it going, yeah, he's a problem. But how often is that? How often does he have the night that he had, once a month? Once a month or every 3 weeks he has this type of game. It's only 6 months in the season. So he might get 10 of those out of 80 games. If you're a star player, you have to have at least 75% of your games have to be that. If you're the top tier elite, 80 to 85 times you have to have those type of games. Your normal has to be someone's highlight numbers or career numbers. Your career numbers have to be pushing towards history. We got to get him in that pocket. He has to get in that vein. He has to compete at that level and produce at that level. The effort last night was there. He was on a hunt for something, and he was confident and believing that he can get it. Now he has to get that confidence and belief with the better teams, which means he has to watch film and figure out, how can I use my game so that we can beat them? Scottie loves winning. Now he has to figure out how to win using his game. He don't need everything. Scottie does not need every facet of his game every game. He just needs the 2 or 3 things that actually works, that he know he can get off. And that's it. Tell me what you think in the comment section. This was a good night for him. Good rebuttal. I'm going to holler at you. Peace.